And with that melody, I welcome you to the Pope's Chapel, or if you like, the Vatican Gardens here in Yaoundé, Cameroon, located at the Nuncio, the Pope's official residence in the Republic of Cameroon, which equally covers Equatorial Guinea. And twice in history, two popes have held masses here, or thrice, if you like. First, in 1985, by late Pope John Paul II, who repeated it in 1995, and in 2009 by late Pope Benedict XVI. Hello and welcome to this special edition of Globe Watch with me, Charles Ibune, completely dedicated to the life and service of late Pope Francis. And I'm joined here by the Apostolic Nuncio to Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea, himself appointed by late Pope Francis. Monseigneur Jose Avelino Betancourt, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, bonjour et merci pour cet grand service. Ici à l'Annonciature, on sommes contents d'accueillir tous les amis, tous les frères et sœurs qui nous accompagnent dans cette conversation.
Yesterday, Saturday, we all watched from the Vatican the funeral of late Pope Francis, which of course summarized the entire world with world leaders, religious authorities. How did you lift the moment?
Well, it was very touching. The images were very illustrative. We saw the church gathered together from all parts of the world, 1.4 billion people that were following this burial, this ceremony. We saw the faithful, we saw the devotion, the love that they had for Pope Francis. Pope Francis, for 12 years, guided the Roman Catholic Church. He was the head of a church, but he's also the head of a state. He's a statesman, and he touched the world in a very personal way, in a very simple but very deep way, which people have remembered that. And so myself personally, I worked with him in very close proximity, and so I could hear the echo of so many good counsel.
We'll enter into that in a moment. But first, the Pope was buried in Casa Maria Maggiore, quite far or quite unique from what we have seen from other popes buried inside St. Peter's Basilica. And I understand that just like late Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, he had a huge say of how he was going to be buried. Yes. How much of his wishes did you see it reflected yesterday in his funeral? He wanted a very simplified funeral.
Yes, well, the wishes of the Sovereign Pontiff are always respected. And his wishes to be buried at the major Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome was also respected. As we know, it was a place that he went very, very often to pray. Every time before he traveled and after he returned, he went to pray to this basilica, which is very, very important in the Roman.
And where, of course, he spent his last days on earth equally.
He also, exactly. And so he wanted to be buried there. Popes have been buried in different places. I mean, we have popes that are buried even in different parts of Europe, so they're not all buried in St. Peter's.
Absolutely.
And there are other basilicas in San Lorenzo, Fordemure, and other basilicas where popes are also buried. So his special attachment to Santa Maria Maggiore was the reason why he wanted to be buried there. I believe that his last wishes were respected. Of course, they are. There are also the real aspect that the people wanted to be present at this funeral, and so we saw the expression, the presence, and the love that was poured out for him.
When the Pope died, so many countries around the world, countries like India, declared days of national mourning. This is quite a Hindu community. The Pope was first in many ways. He was the first Jesuit to be Pope. He was the first from Latin America, and I can name the other first. How exceptional and a uniting force was Pope Francis?
Well, Pope Francis was very much involved in the international arena, from the squalid residences of the most far-reached area to the international stage. He was very much involved. He was invited to address the United Nations National Assembly, and he addressed various international organizations, from the G7 to numerous
and including the
others.
Joint Congress of the United States. Not always easy to carry such an exercise.
Including the joint meeting of the Congress of the United States. And so, as one head of state said just these days when paying homage to him, the president of Portugal, he said for the last 12 years he was the most authoritative moral voice in the world. And I think there is something to be thought about that. He certainly gave voice to the voiceless, those who really were in the peripheries, as he would say. And he also used a very interesting image, that of a field hospital that would be that would accompany those that were most in need. And this was very much what he did as Archbishop of Buenos Aires, right through to his pontificate.
After the Pope's death, there were so many messages of condolences which came across the chessboard, including the letter sent to the Dean of the College of Cardinals, roughly 215 of them now, and possibly just 120 will be participating in the conclave, the normal meeting for the election of the new Pope. And one of the messages was that from President Biya. Yes. Possibly you were the first person to have access to that message on behalf of the Roman Curia.
Yes.
What that message mean to you in particular from the Cameroonian leadership?
We received this message from the President of the Republic of Cameroon, His Excellency Mr. Paul Biya. The words of great sensitivity, esteem, and appreciation for this, for Pope Francis. We forwarded this letter to Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, the Dean of the College of Cardinals. And these messages really illustrate how Pope Francis touched so many peoples. For Cameroon, Pope Francis was very attentive. We have bishops that were named by him. We have a number of different
13
occasions.
out of the 25 bishops in Cameroon were directly appointed by Pope Francis.
Or moved from one place to another, and as the needs arose. Yeah. And he did it with great attention and with great love for Cameroon, and this comes through, and we see the love that the Cameroonians have felt for Pope Francis, also because of the way he spoke and the messages that he gave, which are universal and touch in a very special way our reality right here in the Cameroon.
Il y a environ 640 archevêques de l'Église catholique romaine partout dans le monde entier, et parmi ces gens, il y a naturellement le nom apostolique devant moi, quelqu'un qui a connu le pape dans les relations professionnelles très intimes. Vous étiez pendant longtemps le chef du protocole du Vatican pour la compréhension des Camerounais. Vous étiez le Simon-Pierre Bikele du Saint-Siège. Quelle nature de relation avez-vous avec le pape?
L'Église peut appeler n'importe pas qui, de n'importe pas où, pour faire un service spécialisé. Et ça, c'est vraiment la grandeur de l'Église. Et puis, on a quand même 2000 ans d'histoire avec des ressources littéraires, des ressources de sciences et de tout ça.
Et parmi les gens que Dieu a appelés de travailler très proche, à côté de son serviteur, il y a Monseigneur Avelino Betancourt. Vous étiez le chef du protocole du Vatican. Je reviens sur ma question. Quelle était ta relation avec le pape? Dites-moi.
Oui, bon, le pape, c'est quand même le 266e successeur de l'apôtre Pierre. Alors, il y a un certain contexte, soit des autorités, si on veut, mais aussi qui, après, se fait d'une façon très personnelle. J'ai toujours eu un extraordinaire rapport avec le pape François. Je l'ai connu avant qu'il était pape, même quand il était l'archevêque de Buenos Aires. On se retrouvait souvent à Rome parce que j'ai vécu 20 ans là-bas. Alors, j'ai vu pas mal de gens. Et le pape était toujours très attentif. Ça, c'est vraiment, il était toujours très attentif. Et vraiment, ce qu'il faisait, il parlait de la miséricorde et l'espérance. C'était le rapport. Alors, il toujours, même dans le protocole, c'était bon, le protocole commence avec la charité, avec les attentions. C'est là où ça fait la différence. Hein. Ce n'est pas seulement une affaire protocolaire, c'est un service de charité, d'amour, que c'est ça qu'il a essayé de prêcher pendant toute sa vie. Et alors, on avait une relation très, très belle, et c'était lui qui m'a ordonné, qui m'a nommé nonce apostolique. C'est lui qui m'a ordonné à Saint-Pierre, sous le tombeau de Saint-Pierre, à Rome, dans le Vatican. C'était son 5e anniversaire de son pontificat, le 13 de mars de 2018. Et là, il m'a envoyé, à ce moment-là, il m'avait envoyé en Arménie et Géorgie parce qu'il avait à peine fini une visite dans ces deux pays. Et bon, il m'a pensé de m'envoyer moi. Là, il m'a envoyé ici.
Dès son premier jour en tant que pape, vous étiez là comme le chef du protocole du Vatican parce que vous commencez comme chef du protocole du Vatican en 2012. Bénédicte était encore là. Et lorsqu'il est donc venu, vous travaillez ensemble. Vous avez accueilli pas moins de 200 chefs d'État au Vatican, y compris la reine, de regretter mémoire, y compris le président Paul Biya en 2017. Vous êtes parmi les personnes rares qui chuchotaient dans les oreilles du pape. Est-ce que vous avez les anecdotes publiquement consommables que vous avez eues avec le pape? Parce que ce n'est pas facile de parler au pape à l'oreille.
Chaque visite a ses particularités et a sa propre personnalité. Effectivement, la visite du président Biya était très, très spéciale. Il était accueilli à l'aéroport et tous les ambassadeurs des pays africains étaient à l'aéroport pour l'accueillir. Et c'est très, très, très bien se passé. Il a eu l'occasion de visiter aussi d'autres autorités au Vatican. Bon, la visite de la reine d'Angleterre, Elisabeth II, c'était quand même aussi intéressant parce qu'elle avait promis à l'époque au président Napolitano de le visiter, mais elle, à cause de certaines limitations, elle voulait aller à Rome et retourner en Angleterre dans le même jour. Mais elle ne pouvait pas se permettre de visiter le président de l'Italie sans rendre une visite. Okay. Alors là, il y avait la question comment s'habiller, parce que quand même le protocole Vatican dictait un certain type d'habillement. Alors, ils ont demandé, mais est-ce qu'elle peut venir directement comme elle se trouve habillée? Alors, bon, pour toute éventualité, on a demandé au pape François, qu'est-ce que vous pensez? Alors, il a écrit sa réponse, il dit, c'est une grande madame, elles savent comment se présenter. Toute là. Et c'est tout illustratif de comment la simplicité, le concret du pape François se reproduit chaque jour.
Lorsque vous discutez avec le pape, le matin, les gens visitent, quels sont les sujets récurrents dans son discours vis-à-vis de l'humanité? Quelles étaient ses grandes préoccupations de la planète?
Il était vraiment pris avec l'humanité et de ceux qui souffraient le plus. Et tout ce qu'il faisait, même les rencontres avec les grands chefs d'État, on n'importait pas qui, c'était vraiment en fonction de ceux qui est le plus en besoin. Et c'est celui qui a donné la voix les plus pauvres, les réfugiés, les immigrés, conscience et responsabilité pour la planète. Il avait dit à Lisbonne entre les jeunes que l'Église a place pour tout le monde.
Okay.
Et voilà.
When you look at the Catholic Church today, it's one of the most powerful moral voices concerned with many ordinary life challenges like education, where you have roughly 93,000 primary schools or 43,000 secondary schools around the world. Nearly 60 million plus people attend Roman Catholic schools. What will you consider were the major reforms that Pope Francis brought in for the past 12 years, which will be enduring?
Well, as you know, the Church has always been very sensitive to knowledge. The first apostles wrote the Bible, if you like, and so this sensitivity of schooling and of knowledge has always been very, very central to the Christian tradition. And so the Church is present in the world in many facets, and certainly the whole universities have a strong participation of the Church right from their very inception, the very beginnings, with the Benedictines and the Dominicans and so on. So the reforms are something normal. The Church is always reforming itself. The Church is always in evolution. It is always taking in the realities of the times that we live in and applying the timeless truths of the faith of Christ. And so Pope Francis certainly is the man of our time who faced the challenges, be it in the social, be it in the scandals, be it in the economic reforms. And these are reforms that every institution has to face in one way or another.
He was the first pope to be in a country like Iraq. He traveled to many areas where his predecessors had not been, including Israel. The Pope introduced so many reforms, including the creation of what they call the C9, C8, or the 6-5. That is a college of cardinals who could help him govern the church on a daily basis. The Pope equally signed so many encyclicals to reform the church. Which of those reforms touched you in particular when it comes to evangelization and the spirituality of the church? We are inside a chapel here.
Well, he introduced a new constitution for the way the Roman Curia was going to
the Roman
function.
Curia,
Yeah,
the governing
body of the church.
Of the Holy See.
Yes, and this took many years, and it was something that he started right at the beginning, and this was part of the reason that he brought in these 9 cardinals from different parts of the world, including Africa, to study this with also the help of various experts and with much consultation. And so, in fact, the title is, preaching the gospel.
Okay.
That's how it starts, this constitution. And so the idea was to create a more dialoguing reality, and that he brought over also in the Synod of Synodality, which lasted for the last 3 years. So he was certainly somebody who believes that in order to reform, we need dialogue.
Okay.
In order to create a better institution, we need to talk and to listen,
okay,
and apply what the reality is.
Let's look at the Pope's travels around the world. He made plus 67
That's right.
trips out of Rome or the Vatican City, been to at least 68 countries. How enduring were the messages he spread to crisis-hit countries like the DRC, the Central African Republic, Ukraine, Iraq, Syria?
Yes, that's true. Thank you very much. He traveled to the far reaches of the land. You know, he went to the Pacific, Papua New Guinea. He traveled to, well, his first trip was to Lampedusa, the island of Lampedusa, just on the coast of Africa, and where he made
a symbol of the migrant crisis.
He did a very strong appeal for the migrants and the victims of migration, which was really very much the heart, because he had lived this also when his family immigrated to Argentina and Latin America. So this was very much at heart, and these travels, they always had meetings with prisoners, meetings with refugees, migrants, meeting with religious leaders, as well as meeting with the church, as well as meeting with the authorities. And his messages were very strong because they were messages, but they were also gestures. And I think one of the things that's always stuck in people's mind is that he traveled in a simple vehicle. And that was, he believed in it, because when I knew him in Rome, before he was a pope, he actually walked everywhere with an umbrella under his arm in case of rain. But he never even took the public transit. He walked everywhere. So as a pope, he was forced to have some kind of transport. And so I think these images, which reflected what he taught, I think that stayed with the people. And I think people said, yes, this is an important message. This is something we can relate to. This is something that is real.
Okay. Revenons sur un sujet qui, depuis des années, est toujours sous la table de tous les souverains pontifes, la question liée aux questions de la société, le mariage, les abus sexuels. Le pape avait commis une publication qui avait créé les tensions partout dans le monde. Comment expliquez-vous, en termes de spiritualité humaine, les propos du pape vis-à-vis sur les homosexuels, vis-à-vis le mariage, vis-à-vis les scandales sexuels au sein de l'Église? Il était quand même assez ouvert et trop libéral.
Bon, le pape s'est mis toujours devant le Christ. Et il parlait selon ceux qui trouvaient que le Christ communiquait dans les différentes situations avec les différentes personnes. Et il ne prenait pas les gens en catégorie. Il prenait les gens individuellement, personnellement, avec l'amour d'une père. Et je crois que c'est vraiment ça que le monde a besoin. C'est clair qu'on a des difficultés dans l'Église. C'est une institution humaine qui a une dimension sainte, grâce à Dieu, à Christ, mais on sommes dans une dimension sur la terre, humaine, qui a des défis. Et ces défis sont là depuis toujours. Et c'est à nous de chercher de faire une différence dans le monde, en changer la façon de penser, qui soit plus dans une vision chrétienne, avec l'amour d'un père. Et je crois que c'est ça qu'il a vécu. Je crois que du début de 2015, le pape François a voulu lancer l'année jubilaire de la miséricorde. Et il a fini sa vie avec l'année jubilaire de l'espérance. Et je crois que ça, c'est vraiment illustratif de son ministère pontifical dans le monde.
Je l'ai dit au début ou bien au milieu de notre entretien, vous avez travaillé étroitement avec le pape. Quel est le moment le plus important pour vous que vous avez eu avec le pape? Est-ce que vous pouvez me décrire la situation la plus remarquable?
Bon, c'est clair que c'était l'ordination à l'épiscopat. Oui, il a célébré le rituel ancien de l'Église. Il a imposé ses mains sur ma tête, il a mis les huiles, il m'a donné l'anneau, il m'a donné la pastorale, il m'a mis la mitre sur la tête, Saint-Pierre sur le tombeau de l'apôtre Pierre. C'est clair que c'est un moment très très fort qui a touché à moi, ma famille, les amis, tous les gens, même le corps diplomatique auquel j'avais un grand rapport. de plus de 5 ans et on était des amis. Alors il faut dire que ça c'était le moment le plus profond, le plus personnel. C'était vraiment quand il a mis ses mains comme le successeur de l'apôtre Pierre et il a imposé ses mains sur ma tête pour me consacrer archevêque.
2 popes have been in Cameroon. John Paul II twice and Benedict XVI in 2009. And we saw the Pope each time at the Vatican mentioning Cameroon, especially the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest. How much of Cameroon was in his mind?
Cameroon was very much at his heart. And when I met him, he would raise various questions, which showed somebody who was very informed and very close to the reality. There are many things that require time and the goodwill and the good work of people, and he has sent various people to the Cameroon over the years. The highest level was the Cardinal Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who came about 4 years ago. Last year, he sent his Secretary for Relations with States, Archbishop Paul Gallagher. We were looking at the possibility of a few other visits over the next while. We'll see how all of this works out. But with Pope Francis, the Cameroon was very much at the heart of his work for peace, reconciliation, and dialogue. And I think the Cameroonians understood that. And they understood that his prayers and his work were very important.
What do you think should be the key message humanity should retain of Pope Francis' 12 years as the successor of St. Peter, the 266th?
Well, in Latin, I would say misericordiae et spes, mercy and hope. And I think that if we want to honor Pope Francis, we will continue his work trying to be merciful and hopeful evangelizers. I think if we want to honor his memory, we will visit the churches and we will pray in them for him, but also for his church, because I think that's what he would like.
And with that, we conclude the interview. The Apostolic Nuncio to Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea, Monseigneur Jose Avelino Betancourt, former Apostolic Nuncio to Georgia and Albany, and former head of the Vatican Protocol from 2012 to 2018, ordained by Pope Francis, now of blessed memory. Thank you very much indeed for exceptionally authorizing us to conduct your interview inside the Nunciature Chapel here in Yaoundé, Cameroon. It is simply called the Pope's Chapel here, or the Vatican Gardens, and everybody who is a Roman Catholic understands the symbolism of what was happening here today. Thank you very much indeed. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you.
Souverain pontife et très saint-père, souverain pontife et très saint